right, we're recording again.
Yeah, I don't want to skip the cold open. We should do something.
I just don't have any jokes.
Nick Gorman out of jokes?
Well, okay. I mean, I don't have any relevant jokes.
Are there any memes about chickens in the Cosmere? Because, Raven Tower, a bird,
I mean,
chickens,
there's tons of stuff about
how everything's chicken.
everything's chicken on Roshar. I mean, this would be the chicken tower.
The chicken tower.
Yeah. I don't know, just not that funny. Well, hello and welcome to Cosmere Casual, your casual reader's guide for the Cosmere curious. But this time we're finishing up our detour outside of the Cosmere with Anne Leckie's The Raven Tower. This is our post-read episode full of spoilers, and I'm your stubborn as a rock co-host, Nick Gorman.
And I'm your other co-host, AJ Gorman. We didn't talk about what we were going to talk about at all. We didn't go over an outline. We're doing this
now.
Cold turkey, huh?
Do you want to talk about that now?
No,
because my notes, I've got themes, what I thought was challenging about this book. I had a note in my outline about a plot recap is probably not needed because it's such a simple story.
Oh, I've got a plot.
Okay. Do you want to start with the plot recap?
I'm going to do the plot summary.
And then,
well, actually, no, I don't.
Why not?
Because I want to... Well, you already said that there's going to be spoilers for the whole book.
Yeah.
All right. I'll start with the plot summary. Okay.
Oh, and I wanted to finish up with how there are similar tropes done the same way, especially in Mistborn Era 1, but in other places in the Cosmere.
Oh, yeah, bringing it back to Cosmere.
Because, that is kind of the point of our podcast. It's Cosmere. But, like I said, this is my favorite book. This is my favorite book, I think. It's certainly one I've read the most times. Recently anyway. We're not counting green eggs and ham.
I can't believe this is your favorite book.
All right, let's start with the plot recap, and then, or you want to start with like overall impressions? Let's start with overall impressions.
It was fine.
Oh man. Oh, you're breaking my heart. Okay.
I just it was good. It was good. It's just not my cup of tea. Most Anne Leckie is not like you. Anne Leckie, it feels like she writes just for you.
She's very... I think I was looking up reviews online just for inspiration for what to talk about in this episode, and I think somebody on Reddit put it best in that she's, we're in an era of really plot and character-driven stories, and she does really good characters, but plot, she mostly writes for like ambiance or, with critical themes, not really, she plot's not what she goes for.
Which is fine, but I'm my everyday I want plot.
Yeah.
And there are certain times where I'm really loving just kind of character development. When I was reading it, I was not in one of those times where I would have appreciated it. So it was good. I definitely got into it, but it's not making my list of favorites. I probably will reread it at least once more.
Okay.
Because it's definitely a book. Similar to Brandon Sanderson, this is definitely the kind of book that gets better on the rereads.
It's true. It definitely, you get an appreciation for the silences speak volumes, both in when the humans are talking to each other, and especially when the gods are, either, strength and patience is narrating the story and then, suddenly changes the subject, or like, I've got some specific examples, but we'll get into that.
Okay. Well, anyways, I liked it. As you had warned me, the beginning was really super slow. Yeah. Also similar to Brandon Sanderson. But
to a different degree.
The novel, I thought the novel was a good length.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not going to be catching up to you on the number of times of reading this.
No. This is my comfort read, right? Where it's like I want something that I don't, I can come back to. I can just sit in it, and like it's a well-developed world. The plot, like I said, very simple, but there's always
things to pick up. Yeah, there's layers. All right, so plot summary.
Yeah,
here we go.
Are you gonna say Hamlet? Are you just gonna say Hamlet?
No.
Okay, fair enough. I would just say Hamlet. Go on ahead. AJ, my
I
darling.
haven't actually read Hamlet.
It's
I would,
The Lion King.
Yes, I know.
I was
I'm
about to say it's like
I
the
never
same story.
Is it?
Certainly, if you look at Mawat's plot, it's exactly Hamlet, where he comes back from war. His father is dead or otherwise unaccounted for. Like, there's some inversions on it where his father is supposed, Mawat's father is supposed to be dead, whereas Hamlet's father is, still supposed to be king or whatever. But then, he finds that his uncle is on the throne instead. There's a scene where Hamlet/Mawat talks to a ghost of his father, and then Mawat/Hamlet confronts his uncle, kills him, and then dies.
I don't know. I didn't.
Go on ahead.
I didn't see it as The Lion King or Hamlet. I mean, yes, when you point out those, yes, but we're also this isn't, to me, this wasn't Mawat's story.
Oh, I'm okay. What story did you? Okay,
this was Strength and Patience story.
Yes, and there is that extra, that yes.
All right. So there's a god that existed, one of many. He eventually came to protect a town, if somewhat unknowingly. Other gods interfered and eventually got angered enough to go to town and interact with other gods. He turned himself into a god-spoken object stupidly, got captured, ended up draining the energy from the god, the raven god, until it killed the raven, and he took over Vestai. That's my summary.
There's like nothing of Mawat or Iolo or the Chulans.
That's because, to me, this story is about the strength and patience of the hill.
Yes and no. It's about the revenge. Strength and patience. Strength and patience is revenge. Also, I don't think, and I was keeping an eye out for it, so I don't know, but I don't think we got the strength and patience of the hills pronouns. I always think of them as they, because, to me, that's just intuitive when their name is strength and patience. And they're a rock.
My brain has a really hard time with they being
the singular they.
Singular.
It's intuitive.
And I know
you practice it, you'll get there.
Yeah.
But interesting. Okay. Yeah. To me, Strength and Patience's story is more about the setting, the history of the world, and only towards the end does the story of why.
They're the fucking narrator.
Yes, but so what? There's plenty of stories where the narrator isn't the main character. I don't know. To me, it's the story is about the revenge that Strength and Patience takes upon the Raven and all of Vestai, and what the impact is on the people in Vestai. And to me, the Strength and Patience's history is almost like the B plot. It's providing the context for how they were imprisoned, how they were captured, and why. It provides a little bit more of that context for why they would feel such favoritism towards Iolo.
Well, that's something that I don't get.
Oh, you want to dig into it?
The whole kind of premise of the book is that Strength and Patience is talking to Iolo, right?
Yeah, kind of.
But
also
why?
Aware that it can't be understood, right? Aware that for most of the book, almost entirely of the book, except for 3 lines, it's aware that it's speaking words to Iolo that Iolo will never understand, if in fact Iolo can hear them.
Oh, okay, that's what I didn't understand. Because I'm just are they is the whole book taking place on that rooftop where?
No, so that's and even towards the beginning, there's one of the things I love about it is the language, the prose, right? And that's I know one of Brando Sando's weaknesses, but the prose here is so delicious, and a lot of the book is about language, and the way Leckie writes is eloquent. And so every now and again, especially towards the beginning, there's interjections where Strength and Patience says, just stops telling a story and says, "Can you hear me, Iolo? I'm talking to you." And then again, it was kind of creepy. It is. It's supposed to be creepy. And to me, that helps build the ambiance, the tone, the vibe that this narrator, Strength and Patience of the Hill, is eldritch, is ancient and unknowable and mysterious. And even though it appears to love Iolo, it is not a healthy kind of love. and it's
I didn't get love at all, but
oh
okay.
yeah. Well, I mean, I certainly did.
On which reread?
The first read through.
The first read? Okay.
Because it's willing to, strength and patience is willing to take risks and do whatever, even small ones for a godlike strength and patience. It's kind of weird for it to do, but it does modify its plans to have Iolo be protected, to try to make contact with Iolo. Like when Mawat is, when they're down underneath the tower for the first time, when Iolo is down there for the first time, the strength and patience speaks and makes itself vibrate in a way that it can be heard.
Right.
And that freaks Iolo the fuck out.
Yeah.
And that could have ruined strength and patience plans. Iolo could have said, instead of going and bringing Mawat back to the millstone like it wants, it could have said, holy shit, yeah, your dad's down there, but there's also there's another powerful god there. Get out of town, let's go. Right? Or he could have just gone off and ditched Mawat instead, And then how would Mawat have gotten down to break the mechanism? Anyway, I went off on a tangent. I went off on a tangent.
I don't know. I didn't get any kind of love.
I did, but it's more like an abusive kind, right? Because it basically it basically ruins Iolo's life, even if protects him. And says, "Oh, go, you're under my protection." But you still gotta leave town. By the way, you still gotta, oh yes, you were the trusted aide to the heir apparent. Well, turns out that heir is dead, so you gotta pick a new vocation in life. But you're under my protection.
I don't
know.
Maybe I'll think that way on the reread, but
yeah. So. I don't know, going back to the prose, another thing that I really liked is even when the book is boringly describing like the evolution of life or the slow turning of stars, I just found it fascinating. And I never thought I'd be the guy who likes Tolkien-esque descriptions of trees.
Oh my God, don't.
But here we are. Ugh. Here we are. I just thought it was gorgeous.
I tried to read Tolkien.
I know.
I couldn't do it. So my brain just skips over all that. Like, I will read it, but it goes in one eye and out the other.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the end.
You want to talk about the end? I love the end.
My question is, am I supposed to think that the millstone is clever?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Iolo more than anybody.
Like, why end there?
Well, what do you mean? Like, what? If the story is about the vengeance strength and patience takes upon Vestai, that's basically, its vengeance is wrought. The end is, the end of it is inevitable, right? There's, not much else really to say.
But like, am I supposed to think that he purposely got himself captured?
No, but no, it definitely didn't intentionally get itself captured. Like, I think even going down, being stubborn enough to refuse a new body. To be stuck in this big heavy stone so that they couldn't retreat easily back to the north. I think that was a mistake, right? And I think it acknowledges that was a mistake.
Yeah, I don't know. It felt like the ending was very abrupt.
It has a very big crescendo and then nothing, right? But I mean, like I said, I think that's just because the end is done. That
which is respectable. I hate when I thought we are at the end of the book and there's like 3 more chapters. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know if I needed that much.
No, I mean...
not falling at, what is resolution?
The denouement.
Please stop talking French.
Oh, I picked up that word from the McElroys, by the way. They use that phrase a lot in Till Death Do Us Blart. Anyway. The unwinding.
That, like,
I listened to it to go to sleep.
You pick that up.
Yes, exactly. And then, anyway. I mean, when you look at it at that finale as a parallel or inversion of what happened before with the fall of Ardvastia, the servants that had pushed the millstone around flee under strength and patience's protection, right?
Right.
There are invaders coming to destroy the city. Okay. The ones who had been taking advantage of the millstone, they're they're taken out, right?
Yeah.
But still, when Ardvushtia falls, there's, strength and patience loses consciousness for a while, right?
Right.
And then at the finale of the book just ends. So I thought it was an eloquent parallel.
Of the two cities collapsing.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not upset of the abrupt ending.
Okay.
But I was left a little bit of like, what was the point? Because
vengeance.
Yeah.
There was a reckoning. There was a reckoning. That was the point of the book.
Well,
it was unacceptable.
I was a little thick. I was a little thick reading this, and by the time I got to the end, and like I didn't remember there was a reckoning at the beginning of the book, and no one says the words vengeance. And if this book really is about strength and patience of the hill, like I don't know, I was just left a little like I could have used.
The prophecy was that this is unacceptable and there will be a reckoning, and you think it's that.
But there was
the
no
Raven...
call. There was no callback to that. Like I could have used a callback, or I could have used like another like paragraph or two of just describing the fall of Vestai, just like a paragraph saying like, hey, like in 2 years down the road, this place was a ghost town, something like that.
I mean, I guess I don't know. I think
the other thing that left me, the one thing that was just left me in a lurch or upset about is the fact that why does spinning the rock help? Or why does spinning help?
Knows. Oh, yeah. I love it. And it's part of the way that the gods, in particular strength and patience of the hill, are mysterious, alien, and unknowable, right? They are eldritch horrors, like in a truly Lovecraftian kind of way.
I don't read Lovecraft.
I know. But it says it's not really, it says straightforwardly at one point in the book that it's not certain that the spinning actually helps when it asked a similar question. So we can be pretty sure that it doesn't know if the spinning helps, but it's possible that it does. And it talks repeatedly about how satisfying it is that the millstone finds it, that the sun passes through the sky, that the stars pass through, and the slow rotation of everything is somehow satisfying to it.
So they talked about there being like primal gods that were just
that were apparently powered by something other than the prayers and dedication of followers. Yes, and that they executed their will in ways that did not involve speaking it into being. Yes.
So, do we think strength and patience is like the god of gravity or something?
I don't think they're gods of. I don't. It's certainly one of the ancient ones, right? That apparently draws power from things other than, but also including prayers of mortals,
right?
And who, as even mentioned in a sort of sneaky way beforehand, was able to exert its will upon the world without speaking its will. Right. Because it didn't
outwardly protect the town.
That's
town
right.
Did it subconsciously.
Right. And it never spoke itself into, rising up off of the ocean floor. And yet it wanted to. And so it did.
It wanted to?
On some, it's that same paragraph about it was on some subconscious level. It wanted to change.
Oh.
And it was never, after it surfaced, it never was submerged
and
again.
we don't even get like a postulation of whether the spinning would just help strength and patience or the spinning would help others.
Unclear. That's one of the things that I actually like about the story. Like I know in other things we've talked about Brando Sando where you want more gaps filled in the stories, but I love that there's silences, that there's gaps where you can sort of figure it out. Maybe there's multiple explanations. You get to pick your own.
Which I'm fine with, and I do like in most of the story, but like sometimes there are like bigger questions where I'm just like,
yeah,
I want to know.
So I've got a few specific examples where I relish in the silences, the way that the story is told by what's not said.
Okay.
Right. And in lots of tiny little ways, people are always talking past each other or answering questions indirectly or obliquely, which is how people in real life talk, right? Where like if you're asking if somebody did something and then they, answer, well, I did, something else. Like that's okay, right? But people,
right, they're avoiding
right,
and hoping you don't notice they're not actually answering the question. Yeah.
And like constantly in this book, people are not directly answering questions, right? And Strength and Patience even notes it a few times where when it's talking to the healer god, the dog,
yeah,
and says, "Well, will you do the prompt? Will you do me the fine, I'll do so if the healer god asks for a favor. I forget what it is. It says, I'll do so if it seems like it's possible for me to do. And will you do me the favor of not starving my attendants? And the god responds with, how old are you?
Yeah.
Right. And so Strength and Patience responds, or notes that, didn't answer the question. Right.
Right.
So that's, like the way people don't answer questions. I like it. Also, like, it took me a few read-throughs to figure out when the Raven actually dies.
Oh, actually, this is something I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Because, so you've been reading this book over and over again for years now.
Yeah.
And you have been so excited to talk about this, or so anxious to talk about this book, that there have been points where you have kind of described to me this book in order for you to freak out about a certain thing.
Yeah.
So this is one of those times that you had previously spoken to me about, so I was kind of prepared for it and somewhat looking for it.
Yeah.
So you had told me that
it's not with the bang.
It's
with the whimper.
That a god had spoken the death of another god, and you had just kind of noticed it on whatever reread that was.
Yeah.
So I did pick up on the significance of Strength and Patience saying that they were the only god in the tower.
Yes. Right.
So I realized that the god had died then, but it wasn't until that.
Maybe. It
wasn't until Iolo went over to Moat's father and noticed that he was died. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, he's that.
That would make the Raven's dead. So of course, because the Raven was the only thing keeping him alive.
But also, right, the millstone speaks his death via the tokens to Iolo before the turning mechanism is destroyed, right? And the turning mechanism was the way by which the Raven was siphoning power off of Strength and Patience of the Hill, right? So
yes,
I'm wondering if speaking the Raven's death to Iolo before that turning mechanism was destroyed, because we know that generally the god's words take effect instantly, unless there's another god or another effect, counteracting them, right?
Right.
And so I'm wondering if the Raven didn't actually die when, at the time that the token said that it was only God in the tower. I'm wondering if Strength and Patience was acting against itself up until that point where Moat succeeds in destroying the turning mechanism. And I'm wondering if that is the exact moment that the Raven dies.
I think you're splitting hairs.
I am, but I love it.
Oh gosh.
Similarly, at the very beginning of the book, Strength and Patience is uncertain if the god of the silent forest is truly dead, and it refuses to say, it says explicitly that I can't say for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hope it is so, but I can't say for sure. I don't want to speak on it. But then it grows more confident in describing the god of the silence in action over the course of this book, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like after we see the disease and flood and fires in Vesti, which the forest had committed to protecting against, that's when the Strength and Patience of the Hill starts.
They were more confident because
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like
because they had evidence.
That's right, and they didn't directly speak the death of the silent. But, and even still, they don't say it, that the silent is dead, but they say that it will not act because it, whether there was some loophole or whatever, it's just the silent will not act anymore.
Well, because we also don't know for certain if the god of the silent is the same kind of ancient god that Strength and Patience is, and that was where the Raven screwed up.
Yeah.
Is because the ancient gods are not as easy to kill. So the Raven speaking Strength and Patience death is what was siphoning off his power the whole time.
Yeah. So,
which was like, I'm surprised that I kind of got that the first time, because I don't get, that's like layers of detail that I don't normally get on a first read when something is kind of this complicated.
Yeah. But
Even though it is explained, but it's hard to put it in your brain and digest it.
Yeah.
I thought that the lease, instrument, and air was pretty confusing.
Okay.
In the beginning, like eventually I got it.
Like rather than saying king and prince and like vessel or something.
Yeah, because the instrument, the human, the raven, when at full, quote unquote, full power, is in the body of a raven.
Yes.
And they can only be that way because a human sacrifices themselves.
I mean, I think the raven took the body of a raven before human sacrifice, but that was the agreement that the raven would limit the human sacrifices to the lifespan.
So
of the
you
raven.
only have like 2 humans that are somewhat important at a time in this process. You have the lease, who is king-like, ruling over Vasti, and you have that person's heir.
Yes.
And the instrument that they're talking all about is, well, the instrument is the raven.
The mortal body of the mortal raven.
Yes.
So, and I thought that was, like, yes, it was a little hard to follow, but I thought that was important. That was an authorial decision, right? That Leckie did, because, this book, like so many other books, is about language. And even, partway through, Iolo talking to the Chulans makes a point that it's not a king and Mawat is not a prince. It's, you don't know anything about Iridan. You don't know anything about Vesti.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really thinking of prince and king and whatever. Because
but those are the analogs, right? And like that's
well,
even
but
why
not really, because it always seemed to me like a council of rulers for Vesti. Like, yes, there was one person who had more power than like the rest of the council, but it's not like it was one person on their own.
I thought it was more like a mayor and a city council, or like a constitutional or like a monarch with a parliament, right? So like the
right, but it's a legal system that's broken up into more than yeah. So I never really thought of king, but.
Well, I mean, the Chulans even call him king.
Yeah, but
they don't know anything, right?
They don't know anything. They weren't paying attention.
But to me, that was part of the point of that, was it was a multi-layered conversation where part of it was, all right, the Chulans don't know anything about Vasti or Iridan, but also we the reader, that is the most direct analog we'd have, but also we don't know anything about, like, it is a strange society, right? That the rules don't make sense. And that comes back again later when everybody has a superstitious dread of the twins, right?
Yeah.
And it's because it's a fantasy book, and like one of the elements of the fantastical is the society is different. They have different rules about who's in and who's out and how they call things.
Right. I don't know. I just thought the instrument at first was confusing because I thought it was like a third alive human, and
no.
And it wasn't.
No, that's the
Normally, I like when authors tell stories kind of out of order. So, like, we have like several different timelines kind of converging.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, most of the time, I did like that in this story.
Uh-huh.
But other times, I thought this was just very confusing.
Like talking about, about where we've got the we're flashing back and forth between, and here in the very beginning, before there were humans.
Yeah, because
you
start this book. You start this book called The Raven Tower.
Yeah, and it's before there's mammals. It's before there's multicellular organisms.
And you think that the narrator is the raven.
I made that same assumption, but
I think you were supposed to.
Yeah, maybe. I like a lot of, but I also like that where there's the second person narration was both challenging and unique, but also I thought it challenges our assumptions as readers, and like
I fail that every time. I always think every narrator is reliable. Like, I have no.
But I thought it.
I suck at that.
But it made me confront some of my own biases, right? Where like, yeah, I just assume that a novel called The Raven Tower and there's a narrator we don't know the name of. It's got to be the Raven, right? No. And like it took, I'm embarrassed to say how long it took me to figure out that Iolo was a trans man, right? And I'm not even sure in today's
Like from chapter
society.
1, it was like they made a point.
Yeah, but like it went over my head because it was all because like again going back to they were only talking about things in oblique ways. The clue we were supposed to clue in was Mawat talking to Iolo and saying, well, once I'm the lease, I'll
We can
I'll
make
be,
you what you are.
I've got any favors, I can make you who you are. And Iolo's like, well, no,
I'm
I don't
already
want that.
what I am.
I am already who I am. You know what I mean? Oh, but now I'm prying. And that way that they were talking about his gender identity without being explicit about it, was very good. And also like I am not a trans person. I'm cisgender, but I have trans people in my life, and it like one of the things this book does really well is it has people having imperfect conversations about it, right? About gender identity. And partially because of how strongly developed the characters are, when you see Mawat, trying to go into the House of the Silent where only women are supposed to enter and trying to bring Iolo with him, you see Mawat saying, it's no big deal, come with me. But Iolo is, freaking out. He's like, no, I'm not a woman.
Okay, well, neither is Mawat, and he was going to go in anyways.
And that's not a big deal for Mawat. But where Iolo has had to be very firm with his gender identity, where he's been confronted on it, throughout his life, where he's had to keep it a secret. Like, that's Mawat. It's not a big deal to Mawat.
I don't get the impression that Iolo was keeping it a secret.
Yeah, definitely as a soldier, because he was found out by a doctor, right? And they were gonna send him back to to be beaten by his parents or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. But I thought it was just like you don't talk about it just to make life easier, not necessarily to keep a secret, but
in some
to make things go smoother.
Yeah, there were certainly some aspects of it where he needed to keep it a secret, but even when Tikaz, well, I don't know how to pronounce her
Tazik.
name. No, whatever her name is. Even when she finds out, she's reasonably receptive, where she talks about her aunt, who was a woman. Other people said that she wasn't, but eventually she got accepted into the motherhood of the silent, and that settled
all the
it.
conversation.
That settled it. Yeah, and things like that. And that was just such a good conversation that kept. I saw echoes of it throughout the book, why should she have left to go to Ardvushka where that kind of thing is accepted? Well, she shouldn't. Exactly, right? Like she wanted to be accepted for who she was, where she was in her home, right? She didn't want to have to flee to go somewhere else to live an easier life.
Yeah, you gotta admire people.
Yeah,
for doing that, not because because it's harder to stay where you're at.
Yeah,
sometimes,
but
a lot of the times.
Yeah, but it's also something that is also very valuable, certainly to a lot of people. Having said that, we don't, neither you nor I live where we grew up, so
that's true.
But we chose.
I mean, it's not.
It's not like
we're still in the same country that we were growing up.
Yeah, and it's not like we were fleeing anything when we left. We just, we just did.
Yeah.
So, can I go on about something else that I loved, or I've been talking for a little bit. Do you have anything?
And you're surprised by this?
No, I'm not. But I also want to be respectful, and it's I don't know.
I'm a little concerned that this conversation is going to mean we're going to be talking about the Raven Tower forever and a day after this.
I mean, I have multiple more pages of notes that I haven't even touched on yet.
All right.
I'll tell you.
No. For variety.
Yeah.
I'll bring up a topic of conversation here.
Okay.
I mean, kind of continuing on to talk about, still talking about Iolo. I do like Iolo.
Yeah.
I like the fact that he's quiet and lets other people do the speaking.
Yeah.
I did like the fact that we didn't know Iolo's inner thoughts.
Yeah.
I think it made us pay attention better to the actions and reactions. I'm
nodding vigorously.
Yes. I mean, you have been so active in your chair over there. Dancing and grooving and squirming, and maybe we should start doing video recordings because my God. I mean, it's also the other aspect of that is it makes Iolo seem smarter.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that adage or that quote that's just like, keep your mouth shut, if you don't say anything dumb, people will just assume you're smarter.
Oh, I forget. Mark Twain said it very, very eloquently, and I can't remember. Yeah, and I can't remember what it was, but I know exactly what you're talking about, right? Where it's better to be. Yeah.
Well, there's there is the quote about like you have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. Use them in proportion, but that's not exactly the thing that I'm thinking about.
So it ends with, but it's better to be be quiet and let people assume you're a fool than open your mouth and remove all doubt, something like that.
Yes, that's more what I was trying to get at. But yeah, I mean, it does let you fill in the blanks yourself, and it makes, and if you're filling in the blanks, the story feels a lot more personable to you, which is, I mean, it's a great strategy.
Yeah.
A great writing strategy.
I mean...
Because now we assume that Anne Leckie is smarter than maybe she...
Well, I mean, she's won an awful lot of...
I mean, she's
very
brilliant.
Critically beloved.
She is brilliant.
She's won an awful lot of awards.
But, that...
And she withdrew this book from consideration for the Hugo Award because she'd already won it.
Yeah.
She'd already won it multiple times, and she's like, listen, there's a lot of other good books for the 2020 Hugo, so listen. Now, do I think she would have won it? I don't know. This writing style was pretty polarizing. The second person, narrating it to you,
Yeah, which I think it was somewhat of a barrier. We're not used to reading second person. But, I mean, I think it was a good stretch. I mean, it was definitely a good stretch book for me.
Yeah. You had just said something about loving Iolo as a character. He's quiet. But at the same time, like, I want to say he's like an everyman, but he also has very well-formed opinions that are not things that I would project upon myself, like his hatred of twins and his identity as a trans man. Like, I can't relate to that, and yet somehow he seems like an everyman. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think a lot of that is because if you picked up on the first chapter that this was a trans character, but you didn't know,
right?
Well, I guess if we're talking about man,
yeah,
you could have not picked up on it, and it would have been easy
and
not
I
to.
Didn't. Right?
So then you would have gone through 2/3 of the book, thinking of this as
just like a blank
slate, a blank slate, or just a man,
you see
straightforward,
yourself, right?
Whatever.
Yeah,
and then it is interesting how you notice, like, as soon as you like conceptualize that this is a trans person, how your thoughts change,
right?
Because my mind, I mean, I definitely noticed my thoughts changing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are my thoughts different now?
Well, and even in book,
it makes
that
you
to his advantage, right? Where the councilman Dira, the direction Dira, advises Iolo to lean in on the farmer's accent. And then after that, even Strength and Patience notes like, oh yeah, you're leaning in on that accent, like Dira advised you to. It's that way people would underestimate you.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think it's great. I mean, great authors make you question your assumptions, and preconceived notions, and how you think about things. And I think this book was great for that.
And this isn't the first time Leckie has challenged gender norms with how a book is presented.
But she keeps finding new brilliant ways to do it.
I know. I was about to say, because I remember in Ancillary Justice, which was her first full-length novel, which won Hugo and Nebula Awards, the only gendered pronoun is she. So everybody, which is so counterintuitive for a sci-fi book, a space opera, where like usually it's male dominated, but everybody's a she. And it's because anyway, whatever. It's a good book. Yeah. So do you remember near the beginning of this story?
Oh, no. I'm not done talking about Iolo.
Done? Okay, great. Let's go.
I felt there were very awkward times where Iolo had some pretty thick plot armor for being at the center of attention. Like, I feel like there were times where Iolo should have been in more danger or dead.
Like what? I was about to say, because he gets beat up pretty bad. Like, he gets a concussion. He does,
but it's also like they're bringing Iolo up to talk to the Raven. Like, That seems like for how protected the Raven is and vulnerable the Raven is, like why would you bring it's not like anybody asked for Iolo to talk to the Raven, like why would you just kind of offer that up?
Well, I think they explained it in that scene right beforehand. Where
Yeah, but it seemed a tenuous reason to go through with it.
I thought it was a gambit that Hibal was playing at, where
Well, it was certainly that.
yeah,
But
and the point of it was to get to get divine intervention, to get Mawat to stand down, right?
yeah, there were just times where I just felt like it was some things were a bit forced to get Mawat into the situation to tell a story.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't read it that way, but maybe
I mean, it's a familiar story to you now.
I was about to say, and like maybe the next read through, I'll
Yeah.
keep an eye out for that. Like I said, it's my comfort read.
I will tell you that the most satisfying point in the book for me was Iolo going into the tower for the first time.
You mean underneath the tower?
Underneath the tower. Yes, underneath the tower.
Interesting.
Because I feel like in a lot of books that we read, like we're yelling at these characters to do something, and they're just like, they never do it.
Like the first half of this book, almost nothing happens.
Well, yeah. Well,
yeah.
But like there's some big plot point or something, and you're like, the character just needs to do this. Why don't they just do this? It makes all the sense in the world. But then, of course, the story doesn't make as much sense if they do that one action and whatnot. But for this book, we actually got to see Iolo, I'm going to go, Iolo's like, well, I'm going to go find out. So, there's this weird tower. That's the only place that this dude could go. I'm just going to go and find out.
Yeah.
Which was just, so satisfying.
Well, yes.
The character is just going to go and figure out what's there.
Yeah. And
I feel like that almost never happens. So
I love Iolo as a problem solver or detective. We're both engineers. There's always some element of problem solving in our jobs.
Right.
Right. And I love Iolo for, okay, yes. When the first thing that we were told when we came to town was that the lease fled and you couldn't be found. So Iolo, to try to calm his lord's fears, basically sets out, first thing he does, he verifies those assumptions. He goes, scopes out the perimeter. He doesn't know anything about the ocean, so he tries to he tries to learn about that and says, yeah, okay, there's really no way that he could have escaped. Oh, nobody told me about this, this second set of stairs. Huh. And so then, immediately once he realizes, immediately that he finds out that's another place that he could have been, and that the only one that they have, the only reason that they don't, suspect that he's down there is because they have the word of the chief suspect. He's like, yeah, okay, I'm going down there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't care if it costs me my life because I'm that loyal.
Well, and we don't know the inner thoughts, because if I was in that situation, I'm just like, well, it's not like I'm going home.
Yeah.
I'm not going to I can't live with myself not checking out this secret underground room.
Yeah. To me, I thought that was more of the plot armor was, he's not supposed to be able to go down and come back up again.
Well, I mean, to me, it makes a lot more sense that the gods are not.
Yeah.
The Raven is
not
powerless.
Able to enforce its will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That wasn't tenuous to me. That was reiterating the fact that the Raven is pretty much gone.
Now that I think about it a little bit more, Iolo should have plot armor because he is favored by the one powerful god in the area, Strength and Patience of the Hill.
But I don't. Why does Strength and Patience of the Hill like Iolo?
Doesn't matter. I mean, honestly,
but it does.
No, it doesn't.
It does.
No, it doesn't. It just does. And they make a few. That probably because he's trans. Frankly, they made
why would
what's her name? Tikaz even mentions that she had heard that northern gods seem to like trans people as priests. It's a throwaway line, but it stuck out to me.
I don't know.
It's when she's trying to say, well, why don't you go to Ardvashka, or even farther north?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
But I don't understand what the reason for that would be.
The gods don't have reasons. Why does the raven inhabit the body of a raven? What's the god of the silent forest? Why is it so protective of the trees? It just is. That they just are. They're mysterious.
Okay. All right.
And I think that is in a way, I don't know about other theologies, but I know in Christianity that is a key thing, is that God is in some ways mysterious and unknowable, and in
strength and patience of the hill doesn't want to be that though.
But it's not about what it wants to be, it's about what it is, right? It is mysterious and it is unknowable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a reason why and particularly like in like older, like I'm a Catholic, right? And so and it's not super fashionable right now, but if you look at like older writings about what virtues are, fear of God is one of those, right? And it's like, oh yeah, gods are supposed to be they're supposed to be terrifying.
I think different religions have different opinions on that.
It's true, but like it's yes, different religions have different opinions on that, yes, but I thought this was this was a good way of like, even when strength and patience of the hill wants to protect Iolo, it is still terrifying to Iolo. I thought that was a great demonstration of how that could be, because it's a hard thing for me to grab my mind around, right? Where anyway,
I don't get like I said, I don't get
it's a challenging concept.
I don't get the connection between Iolo and strength and patience. Or we can just call it the millstone, because that's so much easier to say.
The millstone is easier to say. I changed halfway through my notes. I stopped calling it strength and patience, then millstone, and then I abbreviated even further to S&P, like the stock market.
Absolutely not. I would have liked to have seen the Myriad one more time.
Oh, yeah, maybe that would have been one reason to extend that a little longer, because the Myriad was presumably on its way.
I would have liked to have heard the berating that the Myriad would have put on the millstone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I told you that you were...
Yeah, that you should have...
They were shit for making yourself a Godspoke object.
Well, like, making yourself a Godspoken object, making it so hard to get back to their home in the north, like, multiple points.
Mm-hmm.
Like, strength and patience is... like you're asking if we're supposed to think strength and patience is clever. I don't think we are. I think we're supposed to think it's stubborn and maybe subtle and powerful, but clever is not really... I don't know, man.
But I mean, getting back to the conversation where we were praising Iolo for not speaking that much, because then we think he's smarter.
That's fair.
I mean, that was very much embodied in strength and patience, and maybe that's the connection between those two of why strength and patience likes Iolo.
Yeah,
because maybe he just sees himself, or it sees themselves.
Yeah,
in.
It's hard.
Yes, that's brain. The English language just fucks you over.
All right, I'm gonna explode if I can't talk about what I want to talk about. So, in the beginning of the book,
oh my god,
the millstone talks like here, how dangerous it is to tell stories, right? For a god like it.
Yes.
And that's part of explaining it, the magic system, like why.
Well, it can tell stories just fine. It just can't speak truths. Or statements.
It can't make declarative statements, right? Or they're dangerous for something.
And yet,
like
all the time,
speculating.
it's speculating.
Right. So, but then it says, and here's a story that I've heard, and here's another story that I've heard, and here's another, and another, right? And so, going through those stories, once there were two brothers, and one of them wanted what the other had, and bent all his will to obtain it, no matter the cost. So that's clearly Hibal and the lease, right?
Moat, yeah.
No, Hibal, the uncle.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And you could maybe, if you use a loose definition of what a brother is, you could talk about the Soch guy who found the skull god and then attacked the Caluit before. Anyway, so each of these stories has multiple meanings, is what I'm trying to get at, right? And so the second story is, once there was a prisoner in a tower. Like, okay, that's the lease. But it's also the millstone.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. And so once there was in another story, once someone risked their life out of duty and loyalty to a friend, that's the millstone and the Myriad. Both ways, frankly, because the Myriad also risks their life, or her life. We definitely get her pronouns, for the millstone, and vice versa. But there's also Iolo risking his life for Mawat, like going down under the tower, or, just putting himself in danger with the twins,
right?
And, in political danger like that. So I liked that, and like how right
and
up front.
And that's the kind of stuff that you really only pick up on rereads.
Well, but like even on the first read, you're like, okay, you're telling me what the book is about before we really get going. And it's, there were two brothers, one over the other. Jealousy is one of the drivers of the story. There was a prisoner in a tower. Okay, so it's also about revenge. And then someone risked their life out of duty.
Or would we consider the Raven a brother?
Maybe. Because, the Raven was also intensely jealous of what the Arbustians had.
Wanted to...
Yeah, to get what they had.
Yeah.
And then there was also, loyalty. What would you do for your friends, right? And so, like, those are the big themes of the book. There's loyalty, there's revenge, there's jealousy. So good. And, like, the Chulons, like, they're always there in the background, and it keeps coming up again and again. It's like, well, Chula's getting a lot closer than it used to be, and, well, they're just pioneers, right? They're just explorers. They don't want to do anything harm. But, like, looking back in history, like, you as the reader know, and Mawat suspects that it's not just about exploration. It's about figuring out what's beyond and expanding your influence and a step towards colonization, right?
I mean, always.
Exactly. So it's just so good.
I hated Mawat.
Yes, he's supposed to be tragic, and I think some people
He's
are
a
supposed
whiny
to
baby.
find him. Yes, that's not the way I would describe him, but it's not false. He's a spoiled bro.
Yes. I did not enjoy any time that we had to interact with Mawat at all.
I liked him okay in the flashbacks when he's like leading the army.
Yeah.
And I think, that's why Iolo is so loyal to him, right? Is because, because
we had to see some redeeming part of their relationship.
Yes. Because otherwise, he's squandering what he's given. He's throwing temper tantrums. He's hurting the people around him. He's not listening to the points that they're making.
And he's not being very considerate of anybody else around him.
I think there are several points. There are several scenes that clearly articulate that. But I think the one that articulates that most concretely is the one at the end. Is right when they're confronting Hibal on the top of the tower, like everything's going to shit. Where Mawat in one paragraph, in the span of like 2 pages, goes from saying Iolo is so wise, I should have listened to you. You're my most loyal friend, and then like the next page says, Iolo, you're often right, but this time you're just wrong. I'm gonna trust the god. And it's like, yeah, okay.
What?
Yes. Well, and it plays into how Shakespearean the story is, right? Where it's a very classical flaw for a tragic hero to have is hubris.
Yes.
Right? And it's dialed up to 11 in this book, where he almost doesn't have any virtues because it's just his hubris. It's just what he thinks he's entitled to, right?
A lot of Hercules.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Another point that I kind of found that was hard to swallow was the fact that there was the invisibility talisman just hanging out in the bones. Like, even if he was done using it, like, oh, you think strength and patience
willed it there.
Okay.
Strength and patience willed it there for sure, or at least willed Iolo to find it, right?
Okay, because I'm just like,
yes,
Hibal would not have just discarded that. Like, I don't even know if he would have taken it off. Like, he would have kept that in a pocket or kept it out. No,
he needed to keep it where nobody would be able to find it, and so under the tower is a natural place for that because he wanted to hide the Chulans.
But why wouldn't you just keep it in your pocket?
That's another valid option, but it's I think an even riskier one because he doesn't have any divine protection from pickpocketing or whatever, right? Or some or a servant doing his laundry, right? Like you change pockets. Like there's more of an opportunity for failure than just putting it out of reach permanently and leaving it there, right?
Yeah, but you also can't use it.
No, and he didn't need to anymore. His job was done. He wanted to hide the evidence that the Chulans were involved, and then the only really thing he needed to do to clean up loose ends, get rid of the Chulans, or wait for them to go away.
Yeah, and they would have seen him, so
exactly.
It's not like he could have used that to get rid of him.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Hey, you just brought up a topic. It's my turn.
No.
All right, fine. You've got a question.
Wait, because we've already talked about this. There will be a reckoning.
Yeah.
Which god spoke that?
probably the Raven, because we saw that they were asking the Raven for input, and then when, a second time when they see the Raven, when the Raven is speaking via tokens and Strength and Patience interferes, the Raven protests.
What?
Oh yeah.
What?
I'm gonna go grab my Kindle, and because I'm pretty sure I highlighted this, but because when
I missed this because it must have been at a time before I realized that we were not talking to the Raven, or the Raven was not the narrator.
Yeah, and because when the first time Iolo comes to the top of the tower and they're questioning, and Hibal and Lord Radishaw are questioning the quote unquote the Raven.
Right.
Iolo asks questions, and then the tokens fall out. And the first time it's, "Can you hear me, Iolo?"
Which would be Strength and Patience.
Strength and Patience talking. And then the next question is, it's garbled, but in there, but one of the messages in there is treachery to speak, using another's power. And so it's the Raven and Strength and Patience using the same tokens and talking over each other.
Oh. Okay.
So that was and it's different, and it's a different sort of gibber. It's nonsensical to Hibal and Radishaw and Iolo, but it's a different sort of nonsensical as the next answer, which is purely nonsensical when they ask the same question again and they don't get anything in response. Because it's, that one, if you know what the two, if you're on a reread or whatever, and you know what they're talking about, and you can see Strength and Patience, again, bring him here.
Right.
And then you take that message out. What's left is, the Raven protesting that Strength and Patience is trying to talk over and being confused about how this is possible.
Gotcha. Okay. No, yeah, I did not get that.
Yeah. It's, yeah. See, and that's part of the, so layered, so good, so juicy. And that brings me back to one of the other themes I want to talk about, and there's really, I don't know if there's a whole lot to say about it, there's just a lot of ruminations on power and the nature of it, and I thought there was some really key insights.
I
love it.
Anything with philosophy, and
I love it. One of the things that the Myriad berates Strength and Patience about is
among many
is, early on in the relationship, Strength and Patience only spoke the one language, and and Myriad is like, oh, no, of course these stories I'm telling you are in different languages, right? Or from different places where people speak different languages. And Strength and Patience is confused, like, well, do things still happen if you speak in these different languages? And Myriad's like, yeah, of course, it's not the language, it's, it's us. We make things happen by speaking them. It's our intent. Like, a human couldn't, speak their wishes and make them happen, but that's exactly what the least does. The least speaks his desires, and then people make it happen. Right? And that's part of why Strength and Patience is so confused about language, and why it thinks so much about the nature of power. And gods are powerful because they speak what they want and it literally happens using their own innate power.
Mm-hmm.
But, people also have power. It's just not innate to them. It's their status in society. And I just thought that was a nice point, right? That's made right there.
Okay.
I don't know. I thought it was good.
I don't think that's what I drew from that conversation.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I thought it was great. I had a little bit more to say, but now I'm like, it's fine. About Strength and Patience being able to draw power from other sources that seems to be different from the gods, but I'm not clear if it's just anyway. There's definitely something with the turning with Strength and Patience, where it seems to be able to draw power from the slow turning of the stars, or the moon, or itself. Because it repeatedly says how satisfying those things are, and how it seems to be able to do more things than other gods with fewer offerings. And either Strength and Patience is innately able to be more efficient with the offerings that it gets, which doesn't seem particularly likely, or it draws power from other things, which seems more likely to me, given that it also had power before there were humans existing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm out of notes.
I'm not.
Oh my gosh. How long have we been recording?
It's over an hour. Shut up.
No wonder I'm falling asleep.
Okay. All right. The other thing I wanted to say is that I really enjoyed how much patience comes up in the book, where I can't even count the number of times in this book people just say, you just needed to be patient to somebody else. mostly people are talking to Mawat when they say that.
Yeah.
But Mawat also says that to Iru, the guy who became the head of the army after Mawat left. And then
that dickhead.
Hibal says that to Okim at the end when Okim is trying to get revenge for his brother Oskel, right?
Right.
So it just comes up over and over and over again. And the narrator's fucking name is Strength and Patience, right?
Well, I mean, that just goes back to your revenge thing.
Right. But
revenge is a dish best served cold.
Right. But even I think Strength and Patience, despite the name, most of the times that it really fucks up royally is when it wasn't being patient, right?
Right, but that's not the typical.
I know. So basically, it's just anytime Patience gives up on being patient, it fucks up. So and
it's too emotional.
Yeah, that's fair. So
which happens to us all.
It's true. I've got notes about another page worth of similarities and differences with Cosmere stories.
Why don't you sum up?
Why don't I sum up? So Mistborn Era 1, particularly Hero of Ages, but also Well of Ascension. There's a god that is trapped by another whose power is used particularly by the rich and powerful to maintain the status quo. That the prisoner god escapes and seeks a fatal sort of revenge regardless of who gets in the way, but also favoring certain individuals.
I did not comprehend anything you just said. You were talking very fast.
In Mistborn,
there were trapped gods. Yes.
Yes. Ruin was trapped by preservation. The rich and powerful in society use Ruin's power, the Adium, to boost their own status and maintain the status quo. Ruin escapes and seeks a fatal sort of revenge, the end of the world, regardless of who gets in its way. But it also has certain favored individuals, such as Marsh and Vin, right?
Okay,
people
yeah.
that
So
pays particular,
which does sound like this a lot.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. And that's very much beat for beat what happens in the Raven Tower. There are also specific scenes that there's one specific scene in particular that I love very dearly in the Raven Tower, and I think it's pretty good in Hero of Ages, right? Where in Hero of Ages, Elend is talking to Preservation right before the death of that shard vessel thing, and it's sort of a hopeful scene. What?
Oh yeah, because he can't communicate regularly.
Yeah, it's only does Preservation, as the Mist Spirit, do lots of waving, or does it silent?
Yeah, miming.
Right, because anytime it writes, it gets corrupted, right?
And for some reason, it can't talk.
Right. So, but also like the vibe of that is it's a dystopian world, that is also ending, and that's kind of a hopeful scene because the Mist Spirit gives silent pointers and cheerleading encouragement. In the Raven Tower, Iolo is talking to Strength and Patience under the tower via the tokens while Mawat is off going to get its hammer or whatever to destroy the mechanism. And then again, Iolo talks to Strength and Patience at the top of the tower with the whole ensemble, and it's just when Iolo asks questions and the tiles turn or they lift up and come back down and to give a yes or no or it's complicated, it's just much creepier. And especially at that last scene where the horror slowly dawns on everyone present that this isn't what do you mean this what do you mean the Raven's dead? What do you mean this isn't the Raven speaking to us? Iolo, like what's going on? And then as the horror slowly dawns on everybody present, it's unsettling, it's unnerving, but it's also like
in a way that you deeply love.
I love it. I love the slow revelation upon everybody. So in comparison with Stormlight, the strength and patience of the hill has a character development where and there is a long monologue it goes on in the middle of this where it talks about how even though the Callowit people camped below Strength and Patience would be long dead anyway, it has come to realize that the details of their lives and their deaths matter very much. And it's just like, oh, what you're basically saying is the first ideal of the Knights Radiant, right? Where it's,
the journey before destination.
Journey before destination, right? And I found that very poignant, and I found Strength and Patience's slow rumination over that, and it still matters even after you've reached the destination, the journey you took, right? Mm-hmm. I thought that complements a lot of the same message in Stormlight. Also, just in terms of the main driver of the story, where there's gods caught up in their own obligations, trapped by their own contracts. It reminds me a lot of Stormlight in particular, with the ultimate plans to take on Odium.
Yeah.
Because it's about trying to trap Odium in a contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like the details totally are different, but it's just the main conceit, the main driver. Like really, it's a common trope that is used very differently in Stormlight than Raven Tower.
Yeah.
Yeah, and similarly.
Oh my gosh, how many more of these?
This is my very last bullet point. So, the God of the Silent Forest reminds me very much like Honor, although it's kind of got the same aesthetic of cultivation being foresty. We
didn't even really see that god on screen.
I know.
Which I guess we don't see Honor on screen.
That's it exactly.
Well, we see Honor in the visions.
It's like you've got my notes in front of you almost, except you're on the other side of the yes. So Honor performed great showy feats thousands of years ago, and that's the same reason that he's the Almighty in Vorinism and worshipped in some way on the other religions of Roshar, or else his heralds who are subservient to him are the ones who are worshipped. Either way, neither Honor nor the heralds have performed any great miracles for thousands of years, and yet they are the chief religions on Roshar. And Honor is dead, just like I think the God of the Silent Forest is, right? Because even though, the Silent Forest hasn't done anything for hundreds of years, it is still worshipped with a superstitious dread by the people of Iridan.
So what are we supposed to draw between these parallelisms? Between these parallels? To see any foreshadowing for Stormlight or anything like that, or just this is cool?
I'm relishing in a similar trope done differently, right?
Yeah. Well, Brandon's still got a lot more to write in the future. So
it's true. Well, so does Anne Leckie.
Yes. So
she's a lot less prolific than Brando is. Yeah. So I guess that concludes our detour from the Raven Tower.
Thank goodness.
I think you're about ready to kill me, dear.
I'm not ready to kill you. I'm just like, can I go take a nap?
Yes, you can.
But at least in the future, I am thankful that I have read it now. So in the future, at the very least, when you want to talk about Raven Tower, I don't have to sit through a 10-minute explanation of what this book is before you get to the actual point of what you wanted to talk about.
Well, thanks for podcasting with me, dear, and thanks, readers, for putting up with, listening to our podcast. Our music is licensed through Tribe of Noise. The song is Odyssey, and the artist is Ketsa. If you have any feedback, except hate on Raven Tower, you can email us at cosmerecasual@gmail.com or message us.
Or if there are things that you don't like about Raven Tower, feel free to email us, and I will read it, and I will email you back and say, you're goddamn right. I did like the book. All right.
There will be a reckoning. Keep your wits about you.
And keep your wits about you.
There we go.